Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz, and so pleased to welcome back to the show tonight someone who's been a guest a number of times, and other than animal shows and animal related shows, these consumer awareness shows are absolutely my favorite. So please welcome to the show and a long-time guest on the show, we'll say, Susan Bach. She is the Regional Director of the Better Business Bureau in the Northeast Wisconsin region. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Yes, it's always fun, and we have such a good time. And alas, tonight I don't have any stories to tell you that I've been a victim of.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
And I should probably knock on wood somewhere so that I don't become a victim right after this show is taped. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight is data mining on Facebook.
Yes.
Explain to folks what data mining really is, first of all.
Well, it came to light in the news recently with a company called Cambridge Analytica.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and really their data was mined on Facebook, and that term just refers to companies that install, like third-party companies that install some kind of app into your Facebook account, and they use that to access your profile. And how do you allow them access to your Facebook account? Usually it's by answering those cute little fun entertainment type quizzes on Facebook.
Really?
Yes, like, how many movies from the 80s do you remember, or what would your leprechaun name be? They usually make it very fun, lighthearted, but when you click on that link and you agree to take the quiz, you have to log in with your Facebook account and agree to let this company access your Facebook profile. And that's the front door. That's letting them in the front door.
Okay, so no more doing that.
Yeah.
Because you're right, they do make it seem sort of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about, because sometimes if you want to play certain games on Facebook,
Yes.
they will ask you if you allow access to your profile, your friends, etc. Is that, because that's just Facebook asking if they can have it. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of the same thing, or is that different?
Well, I think it is. If you have the choice to choose in a different way other than allowing access to your Facebook profile, I would always choose that.
Okay.
But you could also limit your risk by going into your privacy settings and, setting what you want these third parties to have access to. But I would, in addition to that, remove any personal information that you have on your Facebook account. I've seen people with their, home addresses and their cell phone numbers on there. There's no reason for that, really. Just delete that so that it will never fall into the wrong hands.
Sure. And if you really want someone to have your phone number or your address, say it's a long-lost friend from high school or grade school or whatever, they can just send you a private message on Facebook and ask, and you can answer them that way.
Exactly.
So, and then what do they do with the information? Once they get it, what can, a place like Cambridge Analytica do with it?
I think they're still trying to figure that out. I mean, we've seen Mark Zuckerberg testifying in front of Congress, and I think they're trying to figure out what information they accessed, how did they do it, and how can we keep them, other companies too, from maliciously using this type of data. But they may have access to your contact list. They may have access to things that you've liked in the past, whether it be different pages or different posts, that will, identify you maybe as, pro one party or the other. So I think that's the kind of information that a company like that was looking for, but I think that they're still trying to hash that out.
Yeah, and it's really, it's hard to know sometimes on Facebook, and I say Facebook in particular because that's, well, and probably Twitter would, I guess, maybe fall into that. There are a lot of things out there, organizations, pages, groups, that are of interest to me and probably everyone else out there.
Right.
And if you like to get it to be a member of their group or whatever, you kind of have to like their page. And so it's I mean, I don't think I've really had too many problems. There was one instance, which we'll talk a little bit about later, because it relates to something else that I have on my list. But it is hard to know what to like, what not to like, what to just avoid. But changing those privacy settings, that's a big one.
Yes, and going back into your privacy settings and see what apps you do have already given permission to, and delete them.
Okay.
And that will stop them from gaining access to future, your profile in the future. You may have to contact that company directly to see what information they already have on you.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a bad thing to have, your age or your location on Facebook. Facebook earns money by selling advertising targeted to people like you. So if you say, that you're a mother and you're interested in travel or something like that, you've added that to your Facebook profile, then a company is going to come along and serve you a targeted ad for family vacations. That makes sense to me. And I would rather see an ad that is of interest to me than something I have no interest in at all.
Right.
So, sometimes this is not all bad. It's not such an all bad thing, but you don't want to give too much information away, for sure.
I've seen people that, and I don't have kids, so I haven't done this, but I have seen people whose kids, when they get their driver's license for the first time, they're very excited, of course, and this is a proud moment, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment. And so, the parents will take pictures of the kids, holding up their permit, here it is. And of course, it's got everything on it,
Yes.
Your height, your weight, your eye color, your full name, your date of birth, your address.
Your driver's license number.
Yeah, it's all there. And I'm like, oh my God, people, don't do this.
Don't do that. Don't do
But
that.
you still see it all the time. I've seen it, I think, 3 times in the last couple of years. And that doesn't seem like a lot when you consider all the kids out there graduating, but, I'm sorry, getting their driver's license. And that'll probably be the next thing. I've graduated high school. Here's my diploma. I can see that happening.
I've seen pictures of people posting pictures of their Super Bowl tickets or something that they're so excited. It's got the barcode and the seat number and everything there. And I think that would be really easy to duplicate too.
There's far
to
too many
counterfeit.
really intelligent, crazy people out there who can figure out how to duplicate those things.
Right.
And just basically make your life a living hell when it comes
Yes.
right down to it.
Yes.
So very simple things that aren't so great in the end if you're not smart. I want to talk about annual credit reports. We see commercials all the time about credit fixing companies and things like that. And many of them talk about credit reports and
Yes.
actually looking at your report, seeing what your rating is, fixing things if they need fixing. Talk to us about the reports, how we get the reports for free, because I think you can get it once a year for free.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are aware of that you are entitled to one free credit report every year from each of the 3 credit bureaus.
Okay.
Totally free. You don't have to pay for it. But you need to go to the approved website, which is annualcreditreport.com. There you are going to, you'll have to give up some personal information. They have to verify, of course, that it's you. So you'll need to provide things like your name, your address, your social security number. They want to make sure that this very sensitive personal information isn't getting into the wrong hands. But once you are there, you're going to see a list of all of the credit files that bureau has on you. So you want to look that over and make sure that there isn't anything on there like a mortgage or a car loan or something that you did not take out. It'll also list if you have any late payments, and that of course affects your credit score as well. So look that over, look for strange accounts that you didn't open. If you have a late payment on an account that you didn't open, that is really a huge red flag that you might be a victim of identity theft. So I recommend that people do that all the time. That's one of the best ways, I think, to protect yourself from identity theft. And there are a lot of companies out there that say, you know, you can get your credit report for free, but the only one that is really approved by the government and the Federal Trade Commission is annualcreditreport.com. And so you shouldn't have to pay for it, and it's something that you should do every year. Now, I do it every year on my birthday. It's just a date that I remember, and I get all 3 credit reports at the same time. But there are other strategies. Some people like to spread them out a little bit. You're entitled to 3 reports, 1 from each bureau. So some people like to spread it out 1 every 4 months, so that way they think that they're monitoring their credit throughout the year. That's a good idea. Or some people, if they know that they're going to be applying for a big loan, like a mortgage or something, maybe it would be a good idea to do that like a month in advance to make sure that, you know, your credit report there's nothing suspicious on your credit report that might, you know, throw a wrench into that mortgage.
Yeah, you don't want that happening.
Right.
And so the 3 big credit reporting agencies are Equifax, TransUnion, and what's the third one? Is it Experian?
Experian.
Okay. As soon as I asked that question, I thought, oh, wait, I think I do know the answer to that.
Yes.
And so annualcreditreport.com, and so there it's okay to give your Social Security number, other private information.
And they're going to probably ask you a question like, you know, multiple choice question, which one of these is your monthly mortgage payment, or something that only you would know. I mean, they really do take extra steps to make sure that they're, you know, talking to the real person.
Yep. Some of the questions I've had to answer when I try to do it is, which of these streets is associated with where you used to live?
Right.
Which of these cars have you, or car types or something like that, have you previously owned? How they know all that is beyond me, especially if you're paying credit or paying cash for a car. I don't know how they know these things.
It is a little bit scary, isn't it?
It is scary.
Yeah.
It really is.
But I think it's worth noting that it is safe to put your information into the website, but if you are not comfortable doing that, there is a phone number that you could do it with, or you can download a copy of the form on the Federal Trade Commission's website and then mail it in.
Okay. Would not recommend doing this, though, from like a computer at a library or some other public space, and not doing it if you're in a public space using their internet.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a risk that the information could be intercepted, or somebody, you know, if you walk away and maybe you've, you know, saved the password not knowing, somebody could have access to that account. So.
Yeah, you bet. One of the things that I found when I did the annualcreditreport.com, and I was looking at one of my credit reports, and it did show accounts open that I just didn't recall opening. And so what it turned out to be, however, is, and I found this very interesting, my partner had added me on to a couple of her accounts and gotten me a credit card, but they put this on my credit report also as being an open account. And I didn't know why that should be, because she's the one, the account is in her name. She's the one who has said, you know, I'm assuming responsibility for this account. And I did the same thing with some of my accounts for her, but it didn't show up on her credit report. And so we just simply closed those 2 accounts, you know, for my purposes. But it was very strange how it just I said, did you have to give my Social Security number or anything? And she said, I certainly don't remember that, because I would have asked you if you minded. So that was kind of a weird thing. Didn't cause any problems, other than it showed some open accounts on my report that, you know, I'm like, I don't recall those being open.
Yeah,
so.
It's a good kind of decluttering exercise.
Yeah,
kind of a spring cleaning, if you will, because you became aware of accounts that you didn't know necessarily that were open in your name, which, you know, you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable to something like that.
Right.
Close accounts that you're not using. I mean, I think that's all really good advice.
Yeah. It is strange, though. This whole credit thing is strange because, you know, if you, I sign up for some of the different credit cards that I have to get reports, you know, like a monthly thing if my credit profile or my credit score has changed. And you can see it kind of fluctuating, like it went down a few points one month because I had sold a house and therefore that mortgage was paid off. And so now I didn't have an open mortgage. And so my credit score went down some. And I'm like, what? You know, this doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be this way. And also, if you don't have enough credit cards or whatever open, then that can ding you too.
Right.
It's really weird. It kind of happens in the reverse of what you think it should happen.
Yes, yes. Like older accounts actually help your score. You know, but not having a lot of credit available, or, you know, if you've almost maxed out your credit, that is not a good thing. But yeah, it is interesting factors that make up your credit score, and it can fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still there in the highest range, but, you know, I see it fluctuating and I'm like, this is weird. This is just strange.
Why did it go down 2 points?
Yeah, why did this happen? I paid off the mortgage, why? So while we're on the subject of credit, there's something called a credit freeze and something called a fraud alert. What's the difference between the two, Susan?
Well, a fraud alert is, let's say you've lost your wallet and you can't find it, and you fear that it may have fallen into the wrong hands, and you had your driver's license, maybe even your social security card in there. A fraud alert is basically alerting the 3 credit bureaus that you're not necessarily a victim of identity theft, but it could happen. And so you're instructing them really to take some extra steps in case you open up any lines of new credit or somebody posing as you. They're free. A fraud alert is free, and it will last 90 days unless you truly are a victim of identity theft, and then it will last for 7 years. So they're free, they're easy to do. You just call one of the credit bureaus and they will alert the other 2 to put a fraud alert on your account. So you can still have access, and companies can still have access to your credit report, but they're just taking some extra steps to make sure it's really you.
Okay, so I would just want to make sure I have this right. So if you put a fraud alert on there, it lasts 90 days, but if you're a victim of fraud, it'll last 7 years.
If you're a victim of identity theft,
okay,
and
sorry.
you have filled out an identity theft form, you have a police report, you can prove that you're a victim of identity theft.
Although I guess that's kind of fraud,
Yeah.
but it is a separate type of fraud. Okay. So we see advertising on TV all the time for companies, primarily LifeLock. And, you know, I don't want to knock LifeLock because I don't know anything really. I don't know specific things about them. Certainly don't know enough about them to say one way or the other. But they are the big one that we hear about all the time on television. And yet, when you really look at it, they're performing a service, but it's not as big of a service as I thought maybe they were performing. Like, they don't check all your credit accounts, the things that are open. They randomly check some. That was one of the things. And I'm still kind of looking at it because, you know, I do think it might be a good thing. But then I'm a member of AAA, and AAA has something that kind of does the same thing. And it's free with your AAA membership. And then if you want something a little more advanced, it's a little more, they charge a real nominal fee for that. How do you know, like, about the one that AAA does?
I don't,
Okay.
and I'm really not inclined to, promote one company over another.
Right.
But I will say this, that there are plenty of companies out there. Make sure if you are considering signing up for one of these services that you compare apples to apples, in terms of services. Is it really identity theft insurance? Like, will they help you recoup money that you've lost? Or are they just going to help you fix the problem? That's one question.
That's very important.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
But what I would really like to see is before anybody pays for it, if they do some simple things like getting your annual credit report every year, you know, identity theft insurance or services, it's, you know, for some people it will be great. For others, it won't. It really depends on your risk and your tolerance for risk. But I'd like to see people do things like annual credit report, and then we didn't talk about credit freeze. I didn't answer the other part of your second question. Yeah. But if you really are concerned about, you know, that you may be a victim of identity theft, or you want to lock down your credit report so that you can never be a victim of identity theft, a credit freeze is another really good alternative. That is a situation where for a little money, you can lock down your credit report so that nobody would have access to it. So that's a crucial step in identity theft. If someone is trying to open an account for you, that they would need to have access to your credit report, or, you know, the loan company that they're pretending to get, you know, to be you and get this mortgage from. That company would have to access your credit report before they would agree to that. So a credit freeze is going to lock that down. Nobody has access to it, including you. And it only costs $10 for each credit bureau, so $30.
Is that a year or a month? Or?
Until you decide to unfreeze it. So $10 for the rest of your life if you never need to unfreeze it for any particular reason. But I always talk to like elderly people or seniors who really, they don't have any interest in refinancing their home, or they're not getting a car loan anytime soon. They have no reason to have an open credit report out there. They're an ideal candidate for a credit freeze.
And quite often they're the ideal candidate for people who are trying to steal identities also, or pull other scams.
Yes.
If you did this though, Susan, then I guess I'm a little taken aback by the fact that even I wouldn't be able to access my own credit report. That sort of defeats the purpose of the annualcreditreport.com.
Well, actually you can. You can still access it through annualcreditreport.com. And all you would need is a PIN number that you have set up and created. And you'd have to unthaw it, so that would be $10. But yes, you could, but you could only access it with some crucial information that you've set up.
And if you do a credit freeze, how does that, if it does at all, impact your ability to take out a credit card for whether it's a retail store or a gasoline company or one of the major credit cards? Is that, or getting something bigger, a house loan, a boat loan?
Well, so when you walk up, you know, to pay for something at your local retail store and they say, would you like to save 10% by opening up a credit account? Well, it's not going to be that easy to do that. You're probably going to have to say no, because they're not going to, it'll be denied. So it'll stop things like that. But with a little advanced planning, if you know that tomorrow you're going to go, you know, get a car loan or something like that, it really only takes a few minutes online to unfreeze your credit report. It's not difficult at all. It's not time consuming, but it does require a little bit of advanced planning.
Okay, all right. So what I've seen with LifeLock and some of these other things, you know, I'm still weighing whether or not I want to pursue something like that. And yet I'm very, very mindful to check each credit card each month, sometimes more than one time a month, just to make sure that there's nothing going on, especially on accounts that I haven't used in a while, you know, and there wouldn't be a reason to check it because you're not logging in to make a payment. So I will check those even though there's nothing there. But do these organizations like a LifeLock, are they performing services above and beyond just checking your credit accounts?
Well, I don't know about LifeLock specifically, but there are companies who say that they are searching the dark web, you know, for any personal information like your passport number or your social security number. So that's why I'm saying make sure that you're checking apples to apples, you know. Get it off your list. Are they going to check the dark web? Are they going to, you know, reimburse me for any losses that I have? Are they going to help with any kind of legal expenses that are a result of identity theft? Because they're all different. I mean, I wish I could help you answer your question, but
Yeah.
every company really is different.
But no, this information is good. And what is the dark web? Sounds like something out of
sounds-
Gotham, like,
Yeah,
you know?
it sounds very scary, but
Yeah.
it is, the dark web just refers to websites that aren't accessible to the average, person.
Ah, okay.
That they need special software to access them.
Okay.
And that's where all the buying and selling of credit card numbers and driver's license numbers and things like that are going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much to worry about, you know. I mean, on the one hand, paying bills online and opening up credit accounts online and all this stuff makes life really easy for us,
Yeah.
you know. But it can wreak havoc on your life at the same time if it falls into the wrong hands. And you never really know who's got their hands in the pie, you know?
And still, I mean, it's probably more dangerous to write out your check to the, utility company, stick it in
Really?
an envelope, and put it in your mailbox with the flag up at the end of your driveway, because that is a physical piece of paper with your account number on it that is in a very unsecure spot. So I know a lot of people are very apprehensive about paying bills online and, carrying a credit card at all. But I still think that it is safer than other ways.
And so, okay, mailbox at the end of the driveway with the flag up, that's a good clue that there's something in there to go out in the mail.
Right.
Would you say it's still just as unsafe to write out a check, put it in an envelope, and like drop it in a mailbox?
No.
So
I mean,
that's
if
easier.
you know if it's a secure box,
Okay.
if you take it to the post office or, you put it in the mail bin at your work and you know that that's secure, I wouldn't have a problem doing that.
Things have changed so much just in the last few years. A restaurant that we like to go to quite a bit, used to be the waiter or waitress would just put the bill down on the table and you could just open it up, look at it, put your credit card in there, and they would take it and pay for it. They'd bring it back and you'd sign it. They no longer do that. Now you have to go up to the actual cashier and pay it there. And I said, well, why are you doing this? Because that's a convenience to just let them handle it, Sometimes there's long lines at the cashier and you don't want to deal with that,
Right.
especially if it's a busy night, like a Friday or a weekend night. And she said, well, just to, protect your information so that people can't write it down. And I thought, well, that's a nice thing. I kind of like that. And
Yeah.
yet I kind of like that convenience too.
I
And you
think
can't have it both ways.
It used to be great when you could do that, but then the cell phone camera was invented,
Yep.
and somebody can just whip a cell phone camera out of their pocket, take a picture of the front and back of a credit card, and boom,
Yep.
your account has been compromised.
Yeah, exactly. We have been hearing a lot about this, not so much recently, although one did pop up in the last few days, and we're taping this on the 19th of April, and this just happened in the last couple of days. Skimming devices on gasoline pumps.
Yes.
How can, and this actually happened in Oshkosh, where it was a possible skimming device at a gas station, and I don't know if they've determined yet if it actually was or not. But how can people, I like convenience. I pay at the pump. I'd rather do that than going in, unless I have to get something else from inside. So how can we be assured when paying at the pump that there's not a skimming device on there? And what do we look for to know if it's a skimming device?
Well, this is really a big concern because skimming devices, if you were self-aware, you could probably spot one pretty easily because they looked off. They didn't match. They were placed over the card reader on a gas pump, so they didn't. They weren't the same color. They looked a little wobbly, and they might have been pretty easy to spot. But this particular one that just happened recently is a skimming device that was inside the pump. So you wouldn't be able to spot it with the naked eye. Very concerning. The only way really that you, I think, can protect yourself is just to give the pump a glance over and see if like a seal has been broken. You know, sometimes there's a seal from the state from Weights and Measures to make sure, you know, that it's been inspected recently. And sometimes they put that seal right over the door of the mechanics of the payment system, so that if that seal is broken, you know it's been tampered with. So that's really, I think, the only way that you can protect yourself from those skimmers that are on the inside of the gas pump. But another way really is just to be very selective about the pumps that you choose. Choose a pump that is in clear view of the attendant at the gas station, because, you know, if somebody was going to install a skimmer, they'd have to, you know, they'd be getting tools out, they'd be noticeable, and they don't want to get caught. So they'll install those skimmers in a place that's around the corner, out of view from the attendant, or they'll install it in places like we've seen them in red box movie sites that really don't have any kind of attendant. We've seen them in ATM machines as well. You know, choose those things carefully.
Okay, so what kind of information? Clearly, they're getting your name, they're getting your card number, probably the expiration number on the card, and you know, if it's a major credit card, they're getting the 3-digit security number. Is there other information hidden in that card that they're getting?
Well, usually a skimming device will have a camera placed somewhere too, so that they can capture your PIN number. And so with the number on your magnetic strip and your PIN number, they can create a duplicate credit card, and that's what they're doing.
See, now, I have only got one card at a gasoline station where I have to use a PIN number, and that's their own, it's the company's own requirement. But what PIN numbers are you talking about? Like if they have a chip and you have to insert it?
Well, if it's a debit card, or the pump itself may require, like mine will require a zip code, you know, to verify, you know, that I'm using it. So something like that they have to record so that they can pretend to be you.
So that's why they ask for a zip code at certain pumps.
Yeah.
Okay. I wondered that because I had come back from a flight, and I was getting gas at a gas station in Milwaukee after we picked up the car. And, you know, it asked for my zip code, and I'm like, what? Why do they care?
Well, I've noticed that when I use my credit card to get gas in my hometown, where the zip code of the gas station is the same as the zip code that I'm in, they don't ask me. But if I'm outside that zip code, then they do. So
and that was the first time I'd had that experience, and I'm like, I don't get it. Why do they care? I'm probably not ever going to get gas here again.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. So I want to talk about something that actually a person on this show got this, I will say, scam presented to them earlier this week. And the person asked me about it, and as I looked at it a little bit further, it was something that I, too, had been a victim. I'm not going to call myself a victim in the sense that I was taken, but it was sent to me also as a potential scam. I could have gotten taken. It comes through people that you know on Facebook, and I figured out how they do this, but it comes to you as from a friend, a Facebook friend, and it says, oh, I got all this money, this is a really good deal, this International Monetary Fund, which is a real organization, by the way, but they don't give away money. It's an agency. I guess it's an international agency as opposed to a federal agency. But, I mean, they are a legitimate organization, but being that, they don't give away money. And this person said, I got like $75,000, and it was just delivered to my house, and all I had to do was answer some questions, and they've got a surplus of money, and I'm like, what? And so as I did a little more research, I found out that it was not, in fact, my friend who had sent this. Someone had spoofed her Facebook account and then sent it to me because they must have gotten her friends list. So it came to me as if she was actually saying, "Hey, Cheryl, how you been? Good deal here. You can just get all this
Yeah.
money."
Yeah.
And it happened to someone on my crew here earlier this week.
I've heard the story, change the dates and the names and the places. I've heard the story hundreds of times. It's very, very easy to clone an account on Facebook. All you have to do is right-click any picture on the internet and you can save it. So they can save a profile picture. They can use the information that is publicly available, and then they can start sending these friend requests and emails to people that are already that they're already friends with. And what I suspect happened is that your friend's Facebook account was probably hacked. So the first thing I would recommend to somebody in that situation is you need to change your password on your Facebook account, because somebody is imitating you and reaching out to your friends on Facebook and asking for money or asking for personal information. Sometimes we see where they'll say, "Hey, I'm stuck in London and I've been robbed. I can't pay my hotel bill. Can you send me some money? I'll pay you back." So those are usually key indicators that a Facebook account has been hacked.
Well, in this case, they wanted, I think, a fair amount of personal information that ordinarily I certainly would not be willing to give someone, even if they were super close to me. If they were super close to me, they would probably know some of that information.
Right.
But there's this middle person there who, comes in and, yes, I'm with such and such an agency. And that's kind of how it started. When I said to her, I said, I was still suspect, but I wanted to know a little more because I do shows like this. And so I said, well, can you put me in touch with this guy? And right away I'm getting Facebook messages from, Joe Blow, and not his real name, of course, but it was some weird made up name. And yeah, I've been working for the International Monetary Fund for umpteen years, and we do have an excess of money. And I finally just said, well, I'm not interested in this, but if you have excess money, send it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and help pay down our national debt. And
Good answer.
Because Lord knows we need the help. But, I mean, it was just, they were wanting a fair amount of personal information.
Well, so they probably were after your personal information. Like, I can imagine them saying in the next step, if you give me your bank account information, we'll have the money wired directly into your account. Or they could say something like, all you have to do to get this $75,000 or whatever it is pay, the insurance or the taxes or the customs fee. They make up all kinds of fees. So just wire me $500 and then tomorrow you'll get, a wire transfer of whatever. So that's usually how it plays out. But the reason that they do that, where they pretend to be your friend, is that, hey, this happened to me, you're more likely to respond to this great deal from a friend than if it was just,
Right.
a stranger contacting you and saying.
Yep.
But, I mean, the first big red flag is that, it's too good to be true, that this fund is giving away money. I mean, that's just too good to be true. I wish it were true, but
Yeah. I wish we could all get $75,000 or $7,500, would even be nice.
yeah,
But
and we've seen things like the IRS wants to give me a grant because I pay my taxes on time, or it
Oh my
doesn't
God.
happen. It doesn't happen.
some
that way.
of some of the ridiculous stuff that these people come up with, and what's sad is that some people actually fall for it.
Right.
So you mentioned before a little bit, Susan, about digital spring cleaning. But what would be, and that was in, I think, response to Facebook or something, but what's a good way to just do a complete digital spring cleaning now that Well, the calendar says we're in spring, but a few days ago we got inundated with a blizzard and all the snow that came with it. So I don't know, but we can still stay indoors and do digital spring cleaning, right?
We can pretend that it's spring, but there is more information about tips if you just go to the BBB's website, which is bbb.org. But I think this is a great reminder, as we're doing our physical spring cleaning of our house, that we just do a couple of things to ensure that our digital home is also clean. So do things like change your passwords, go through your email and delete anything that might contain personal information. If somebody had access to your email, they really have the keys to a lot of things. They can change, your bank account password. They can do a lot of things. So clean that up, get rid of all old emails that you don't need or want anymore, and unsubscribe from emails that you don't read or don't want anymore.
Yeah.
That would save a lot of space on your hard drive.
I do that on almost a weekly basis.
Yes. Get rid of old hard drives, old thumb drives. All of those still contain, information on them, and they need to be shredded. A hard drive needs to be shredded. It's not enough just to take a hammer to it, because a very thoughtful identity thief could still salvage some information on that. So do things like that. Make sure that your software is all up to date. Your spyware and antivirus protection is all up to date. These are some, I think, just things that, not only because it's spring, but it's something, of course, that we need to keep in mind always.
So you say change passwords, and that's fine. Delete email, that's not important. Because of what I do and because I'm on different committees for volunteer stuff that I do, I have to save a certain amount of information in folders and whatnot. How do I delete that stuff and still have it at my access if we have to refer back to it at a board meeting at some point or whatever?
Well, I guess you could save it externally, onto a thumb drive or something. I guess that's not really the kind of stuff that important information that you need to refer back to, that's okay to keep.
Okay.
But it's, things like notices from your bank that you don't want or need anymore,
all right.
Things like that, or a credit card statement or something. I mean, yeah, you do want to keep that, but again, if somebody had access to your email, they would know your credit card institution, and just things like that might be sensitive information that you want to keep out of the hands of an identity thief.
Good. Well, that clears that up for me. Thank you.
Sure.
So I know we've been talking about the website. I think we should put it up. It's bbb.org, and there is a phone number for you guys also. And for those listening to us on the radio, that number is 800-273-1024. Is that correct?
A better number, 1-800-273-1002. That'll get us to our consumer information specialists that can help you, all the things that the BBB can do for you free of charge, give you a review of a company, whether they're in this state or in somewhere else in North America. Help you file a complaint if you're having trouble with a company, or update you on certain scams, give you information about that. We're happy to do that as well.
Okay, great. So 800-273-1002 or wbbb.org. And so we can put that up on the screen, and I want to talk in our remaining about 12 minutes, I want to talk about some things that we should be aware of with nicer weather. Despite all the snow last weekend, today and yesterday weren't half bad in the way of temperatures, but people aren't going to be out going door to door just yet, but they will be relatively soon. People like storm chasers, and we can talk about what they are and what they do. people who go from door to door selling asphalt for your driveway, and meat sellers of all things. That's always one of my favorites. But let's talk about storm chasers because
Yes.
you know the National Weather Service and emergency management government agencies have recently started doing tornado warning, siren warnings every Saturday, and so we have to start thinking in terms of bad weather, bad
Yeah.
windstorms, tornadoes,
Spring is
etc.
really the time where something like
Yeah.
that happens.
You betcha. And so the storm chasers are not the kind of people who chase tornadoes. They chase the after effects of tornadoes. So tell us about what they do.
Well, if you are the unfortunate victim of tornado has hit your hometown, or even worse, your home, you may have some damage, roof damage, tree limbs. You may need a landscaper or a roofer. We just encourage you to check those companies out with the Better Business Bureau and other agencies before you give them money in advance, because we want to protect consumers and homeowners from storm chasers. Those are people who may or may not be qualified, but when they hear that there's been bad weather in certain parts of the country, they'll just jump in the car and head to that part of the country. A storm chaser would be somebody who really isn't qualified. Maybe this is the first time that they have, put on a roof. They're not licensed. So we just want to protect you because, when you discover, come winter that the roof is leaking or something, those people will be long gone. You won't be able to find any kind of contact information for them. So we just urge you to use people who are local. We know that they're qualified, that they are properly licensed, that they have all of those licenses and bonding requirements from the state of Wisconsin, that they pass a competency test. And so, beware when bad weather happens of people who, may seem like they're great guys. They may seem like they're giving you a great price, but those are the kind of people that you want to make sure that you're really checking out first, that they don't have an out-of-state license plate or an out-of-state business card, or that the business card that they're presenting to you has the address of a local motel or something on it. Then that's just
Always
a
a
red flag.
giveaway.
Yeah, that they're not local, that they may be hard to find if you need them later.
Sure. And another thing, if you are going to have work done on your house or summer home, cabin, whatever the case may be, get referrals from the person that you're looking to have it done by. Even if you seek them out, it's a good idea to get referrals, I think. And in Wisconsin, it's very clear contracts must have a start date on them, and they must have a completion date on them.
Yes.
And there are penalties for contractors who don't offer a contract, first of all, and then who don't have those two dates in there. But, one thing I always do, and I think it's a good idea just to kind of protect yourself too, is if you're hiring a contractor to do something, have them provide you with a copy of their general liability insurance coverage, to make sure that they are insured. And a general, a mechanic's lease, a lien release.
Yes.
A mechanic's lien release at the end of the job. Do you
Yeah.
want to tell them why that's important?
Well, first of all, the bonding and insuring, when depending on what kind of industry they're in, they will require some licensing. Dwelling contractor license is something that they get from the state that proves that they pay workman's comp. So if somebody fell off your roof, you wouldn't be liable. It would be the contractor who had to pay for any kind of workman's comp issues. So the first thing you want to do is ask them for a dwelling contractor license. That proves that they have all of that insurance coverage to protect you from any liability. And then a dwelling contractor qualifier license is a license that is issued to an individual, and it's really a competency license. So you also want to check for that depending on the industry. A lien is I think the worst thing that could happen is that you are a homeowner and you're paying to have, some remodeling done, and you love it, it's great, and a couple months later, a subcontractor comes back to you and says, I didn't get paid for my plumbing work, so, the homeowner, you have to pay up. That would really be, I think, the worst experience.
And it can happen. And they slap a lien on your house.
Yes. So in order to prevent that from happening, you do not pay the final payment to the general contractor until they give you something called a lien waiver or a lien release, to release you from any liability from subcontractors who are making a claim.
And it can happen so easily. You have a contractor, they go to, I'll say Menards, not because there's any problem with Menards, but they're one of the bigger ones in the area, or Lowe's. They go to one of these stores and they buy all the material for the work on your home, and they have an account set up where they get billed for it, but say they never pay for it, and then Lowe's or Menards or whoever could come back on you, even though you have paid for the materials in what you're paying the contractor. That doesn't necessarily mean that the contractor is in fact paying their bill to the store that they bought the supplies
so you'd
from.
have to pay for it twice, and we really don't want that to happen.
Who wants to do that? That would just bite. So no, we don't want to do that.
Right.
So
to protect
a mechanic's
yourself,
release or a
yes.
lien release, whatever it may be called, and it can go by different names, but just get a lien release. It's not a big deal, and any responsible, respectable contractor will be happy to do that for you. Driveway asphalt people. Tell us about what they do.
Well, after the fact, so maybe in the fall, we hear all kinds of complaints from homeowners that, the driveway that they had put on, installed, or coated in the spring is now cracking and in disrepair. And what happened to them in the spring is that probably somebody knocked on their door and said, I am doing asphalt sealing or driveway repair for somebody that down the road, and I just happen to have some leftover materials, so this is your lucky day. If you, agree, I will reseal your driveway for a bargain price. But the deal is only good for today, only because of this leftover material. You have to make a decision right now. There's no time to think about it. Just write the check. And then the complaints that we get later are that there really was no asphalt at all. They maybe just put some motor oil over the driveway to make it look like it was a new layer of asphalt, or that it's just thin and cracking, and they can't, of course, find the company because they're long gone. So
Sure.
those are what we call the kind of scammy, sketchy driveway repair people.
Sure.
But the kicker there is that they knocked on your door and said, we have some leftover materials, today's your lucky day.
And it should be noted that people going door to door need a seller's permit from the city, or township or whatever, wherever they're in, they need a seller's permit to be doing that, right?
For that, yes. Well, it depends on the municipality, but it doesn't hurt to ask them, do you have a seller's permit?
Yeah, I think most cities require something like that. I don't know about townships or villages and things like that, but for sure, I know the city of Oshkosh does and the city of Appleton does. So now meat sellers who are going door to door.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing. I mean, I have to get rid of this case of steaks before I can head back to the home office. So this is your lucky day, but you have to decide right now. It happened to my husband. He almost fell for it. You show my husband some raw steaks right before dinner. He's just very vulnerable. But the complaints that the Better Business Bureau gets afterwards are that it was very subpar quality, that they couldn't return them, that they couldn't find the company, to send them back, anything like that. So the kicker there is just, of course, that line, I have leftover product or leftover material, but that you have to decide now. There's no time to, check them out with the Better Business Bureau or check references or anything. It's just like a one-time only price. So that's exactly the time where I think people should just step back and say, oh, let me think about it. In our case, my husband was sitting on the driveway, pulling out his checkbook, and I pulled out my cell phone and said, let's see what the Better Business Bureau has to say about your company. And lo and behold, they did not have a good report, and off he went. He did not sell us any meat, but it happens. It really happens, and you just have
Your
to be
husband
careful.
must have been disappointed.
He was very disappointed. He was like, "Oh, it looks good. It looks good," and I'm like, "Oh, well."
And do they usually require you purchase like a sizable amount of meat?
Yeah, like a case or
Wow.
something like that. It was all freeze sealed or packed or whatever. And we've heard even complaints where people were like, the top layer was good, but after that, it really was not good. So not all companies are bad, certainly, and not all companies are good. You just have to, do a little research and so that you can tell the difference.
Well, and some are not even on that order. Like the one that comes to mind, and I'm not promoting them by any means because we can't do that on this show, but the one that comes to mind is Schwann's. Now, there's a company that they don't go door to door like every house in the neighborhood,
Right.
but they have a list of customers that they go to,
And
then
you
if
order
you
yes.
contact them and they will come to you, and so we're not talking about those kinds of
We're
companies
not talking
here.
about those kind of people.
So, okay, very good. I also just want to, in closing, I want to add one phone number here. And if you have a real serious problem where you feel that the state needs to intervene with some kind of legal steps, please call them. It's the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And their number to file a complaint is 1-800-422-7128. And that is not to say that you can't also file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, which their number, the new number that I've been given, is 1-800-273-1022.
1002.
Oh, I'm sorry, I looked right at it. 1002.
It's okay.
So that's what it is, and I'll say it again. The Better Business Bureau is 1-800-273-1002, and the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection is 1-800-422-7128. And the only difference there is the state has a little more teeth, and they can make someone do something, whereas the Better Business Bureau can't really force someone to do something, right?
Well, they refer cases to the Department of Justice, and we can do that too. We have a very good relationship with that, and if we see a pattern of complaints, we will too. But we cannot enforce any laws. But we really want to encourage people to file with the Better Business Bureau because that's what makes up our reports on companies.
Correct.
So, we would hate to have a company have no complaints, great rating with the Better Business Bureau because nobody bothers to file a complaint against them. So you can help other people, warn other people about a bad company by filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau.
Okay. And I would say before you do business with a company unfamiliar to you, check with the Better Business Bureau to see what they have to say about them. So that's going to do it. Thanks so much.
Thank
It's
you for
always
having
fun
me.
and always informational. Thanks to the crew and thanks to you at home. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.